Hi, my name is Bonnie Stewart. I am a writer and an educator and a PhD student at the University of Prince Edward Island. Um, and I'm very much a social learner. I spend an inordinate amount of time on Twitter, blogging on other social media platforms. I do it partly because my research is actually into social media and identity. And so I have a very good excuse to be on Twitter a whole lot of time because it's research for me. But in truth, my learning there and my interactions there are very much social as well. And a great deal of the value comes out of the sociality as opposed to simply the content that I get there. I am part of the very first cohort of PhD studies in education here at UPEI. And the year that I began, 2010, in September, there were three of us. The other two people who are lovely, my colleagues, my cohort, as it were, don't even use social media, let alone are researching it. And so in terms of specific overlap and kind of building on each other's knowledge base, that wasn't available to me locally. I happened upon something called PhD Chat, which is a hashtag, the number sign, and then the letters PhDChat, that is a locus of conversation for PhD students all over the world. It's archived, it's ongoing, you can see it anytime. You can participate in a given chat. I think it's usually late on Wednesday nights for me, and sometimes I do pop in and participate. But from it, more than just the sort of real-time chance to talk to people about a specific topic of PhD studies, I found the people who were doing the kinds of research that I'm interested in. Some of them are way ahead of me. Some of them, like me, are sort of beginning in this area. And a few of those people I've formed really valuable connections with. I met a couple at a conference last year. It was very cool to get to meet them in person. But I have gradually been able to form my own cohort of students who are interested in similar things. I also found the University of Venus through my social learning online. So the University of Venus is a blog. It's a group blog of mostly women, mostly kind of Generation X age, all working in academia as students, faculty, or staff. And I ended up blogging for them about my experience in MOOCs, which is another form of social learning that I do, massive open online courses. And that experience is one where I pick and choose how much I participate. I'm not an all-the-time participant because you can only do so much social learning, particularly in the formal sense. But I get great value out of all of those sort of formalized contacts related to my specific research that I've been doing online. In terms of my research as well, one of the places where social learning has been really valuable for me is I'm actually getting most of my most of my thesis research, in a sense, crowdsourced. I have the chance to, I have this large network of people that I have fostered an ongoing conversation with about questions of who are we when we're online. And so when I ask these questions related to my research, I get a variety of really interesting answers. I get people willing to engage. I've had people who have volunteered to be part of my PhD study simply because I'm working in the open in this way. I'm performing my social learning visibly online, and people can connect with it and connect with me. But for me, really, the most valuable piece of my social learning is less formal. I'm interacting with people constantly online, and I'm learning from them, whether I'm learning about what it's like to live with cancer, what it's like to be a person of color in North America today, what it is like to be an economist or a scientist or some other discipline that I have very little knowledge about. Because of people's very human day-to-day interactions with me online, I get a much better sense of what it's like to inhabit the world from a multitude of lenses. And those connections are actually very real. Years ago, when my children were very young, I blogged about sort of parenting and identity. And I met online. I met a large community of so-called mommy bloggers, which I had always thought would be this horribly inane community, and was actually, a fabulous network of smart thinking women who wrote beautifully. And I mean, you select, you pick and choose who you want to form those connections with. But I formed all these really tight connections. It's turned out that one of the women that I knew fairly well back 6 years ago, when we were both actively writing through the early days of our children's lives, is a professor in the digital humanities, which is an area that I'm sort of straddling with education, but one that I'm not super knowledgeable about. And I am going to be presenting at this year Canadian Congress for the Social Sciences and Humanities at the end of May. It turns out that this woman, this contact of mine, this friend essentially from a totally different part of my life, is actually heading up that particular mini conference, and I'm going to be able to stay at her house, and we're going to hang out, and probably we'll talk about digital humanities, and probably we'll talk about our kids, and probably we'll talk about our lives, and all of those things. So there's something about social media that for me has been not at all simply about the PD aspects, the fact that I can, come across some great articles because people are tweeting them, and I do, or that I can learn specific things, although I do, but it is the chance to be engaged and embedded in this rich social world that's very human. And it's about people. You're building trust, and you're building relationships, and you're interacting with people. And so for me, as a learner and as an educator and just as a person, it's been a real enrichment in my life. Thanks.